Well, that's an awful busy week for us. Obviously, we're getting ready for the bowl game. We leave tomorrow to get to Albuquerque, have a couple days of practice and activities, and then we get to play the game. But probably more important for the program, tomorrow is the early signing date. So we've had a couple recruiting weekends the last couple weekends. Hopefully we're going to sign the majority of our class tomorrow. We'll find out when the letters of intent come in. But we figure we have 18 to 19 scholarships available this year. We hope to sign anywhere from 9 to 12 guys tomorrow. And if we do that, that'll put us a long way toward finishing our class. We won't have many to recruit for the second signing date, which is in February. So it's busy, busy, busy. Our players are just finishing finals and trying to get themselves ready to play in a bowl game. So we're real busy, but it's a nice way to be this time of year.
Rocky, with the NCAA portal transfer, are you getting contacted by a lot of kids based on the success of the program?
Not a lot of kids. I think the young men that put their names on that portal check out your team before they do it to make contact with you, to see what positions you're in need of, where they might be able to play quickly. I think they're pretty thorough about which teams they contact once they put their names on the portal.
The weather forecast for the bowl game is sunny, windy, cold, and 100% chance they're going to run the ball?
Well, I don't know what the weather report is. It sounded to me when I looked at it that it was going to be in the high 40s. The sun was going to be out and it wasn't going to be too windy. So I've spent some time in New Mexico. That's not bad weather. That's pretty darn good weather, really good football weather. The team we're playing is very balanced. They like to run it, but they throw it a lot too. So the last half of the season, they've been really, really successful, scoring a lot of points, gaining a bunch of yards, and I'm sure they're coming into the game excited.
We know about the quarterback. Do you want to drop that guy or dual threat?
They actually use two quarterbacks. One quarterback is a good athlete that would rather throw it than run it, and the other quarterback's a good athlete that would rather run it than throw it. So they've got the ability to put whoever in there. Now, they are a team that even though they throw it a lot, they throw it a lot more than they run it. It's more of a controlled passing game. So they try to run the clock and try to keep the ball on offense like other people do running the ball, but they do it with a very controlled passing game.
Rocky, when a quarterback has only a week and a half or less than a week to prepare for your defense, what's the biggest challenge in a quarterback's eyes at the line of scrimmage?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the quarterbacks. In this case, they've had 2 weeks to get ready for us, so I'm sure this quarterback will really understand our defense more than most quarterbacks do because of the extended time period he's had to get ready. I would guess, now I'm just guessing, I would guess it is totally dependent on the quarterback. Some quarterbacks spend a lot of time studying film and get a key or two that gives them an advantage. Some quarterbacks, their advantage is athletic ability, buying themselves time for somebody to come open and that sort of thing. Nowadays in college, most of the coordinators, offensive coordinators or head coaches in college have somebody spotting your defense upstairs and then they call the plays. So it has very little to do with the quarterback understanding what's going on. He either hands the ball off on a run from the call from upstairs, or in the passing game he has a progression he goes through. It's really, really simple. With today's offenses, it's very, very simple on the quarterback. I've been told in the NFL, the coaches call the plays for the quarterbacks too, and that's why they put the rule in that with however much time left on the clock, they turn off the headsets, because coaches were, at the time, were telling their quarterbacks where to throw the ball. So I think a lot of that by the quarterback has gone out the window. I think a lot of it's being done by the coaches.
Would you like to see it go back to the quarterback calling the plays?
Certainly. I'd love the quarterbacks to call their own plays and have to do all that on their own. I'd love that, sure.
But then you couldn't call the defense either.
Well, we could have the middle linebacker call it. I mean, I like to let the players play.
What is the biggest challenge in teaching the success you've had in the 3-3-5? What's the biggest challenge for the players?
I think that in our defense, and when we first started running the 3-3-5, we were unique, and there was only a couple schools in the country that ran it. Now there's a lot of people running it. A lot of the NFL teams use it as their dime package and their nickel package. So there's a lot of people running it now, so it's probably the most versatile defense out there. You can do more things with it. But then you got to be very, very careful that you don't give your players so many assignments and so many adjustments that they make mental errors and they don't play fast. It's very versatile if your linebackers could be D linemen and safeties at the same time, or a safety can be a DB and a linebacker at the same time.
Thoughts on Lukaku getting 13?
Well, I think he's getting a lot of accolades for having a good year. Being the first DB, I got to get this right. Tell me if I'm right. First DB in the history of this school, and they've had a lot of good DBs go through this school. In history, the first DB to make the Walter Camp All-American team. That's pretty cool stuff. That's really neat. I think he enjoys it too.
How many extra practices did you guys get compared to other bowl seasons with the game being so soon?
We had a total of 8 practice. Well, by the time the game shows up, we'll have had a total of 8 practices. Most of the time, we have anywhere from 15 to 20 practices in the games we've played in the past. So it was a spring practice for the younger players in our program. We've had one day this practice season, one day where we've actually worked the young guys, and it was only the last 30 minutes of practice. So we haven't had the advantage that we normally have with the bowl game. Now, the advantage we do have is it's the first time in a long time our players are going to be home for Christmas. And I'm sure our players like that, and I'm sure their parents like that.
Even with 2 weeks to prepare, is it still hard is it not the same just because there's, signing day, players got finals? Is it hard to prepare even if there is the extra week?
I think it's hard on the players. I mean, they're being pulled in so many different directions. Obviously, we want their concentration on the practice field and the meeting rooms. Some of them aren't even there for the meetings because they're taking finals or they're studying for finals. I think it's hard. I think this is harder than most because of how early we're playing. Usually it doesn't really matter if they're late or miss meetings or practice during finals because we have another 3 weeks to go before we actually play in the game. So that them being distracted is not a big deal. But obviously they're a lot more distracted in crucial practices this year than they have been in the past. Now, I don't know Central Michigan. I don't know their final schedule. They might be doing the exact same thing. So there might be an advantage or disadvantage. I don't know when their finals were.
The video that you've looked at, how many games did you scout? And is it big boy football? I mean, they're just going to run the ball because that's averaging 6 yards per carry?
No, I think that we've watched every film, but we only computer broke down in the last 4 games. And they are like everybody that we play. They give you a variety of formations, motions, all that kind of stuff, and they just count. I mean, it is so simple. Football is so simple at the college level now. They count. If you have enough guys in there to make it hard to run, they throw it. If you don't have enough guys in there to make it hard to run, they run it. So if they're able to get a numbers advantage just by looking at the way you're lined up, that gives the offenses advantages all the time. And then if you take in the deal where you can't hit them anymore, the offenses always have an advantage. Anytime you hit somebody hard, now it's a penalty.
to be favoring the offense more. Why is your defense having so much success this year?
Players making plays and playing hard. It's not scheme.
Is this collectively the fastest defense you've had in a while?
I don't know. I can't tell that. I think if you count every single game from the very first game to the last game, it's the most productive defense that has been here in the last 10 years, the most productive defense. And it's probably the most successful defense because the points they've given up is better than any other defense that came before them. This is a tribute to the players because of how hard they play and how fast they play, because they are not the most talented defense that ever played here since I've been here. There's been a couple defenses here that had 4 and 5 NFL guys on it. Those defenses were much more talented than this defense. I don't know how many pros are on this defense, but not very many.
Do you guys prefer playing or having this like 3-4 week layoff, or do you guys prefer the week to week, where you guys kind of get in the flow of the schedule and routine?
I like playing week to week. I don't even like bye weeks. The bye weeks are good to get good players healthy, though. Good players that are playing with some form of hurt or injury, and they're trying to play through it. A bye week or a couple weeks off in this case is really good for those guys. So usually when you have a week off or 2 weeks off, you have all your best players ready to go.
Ryan Agnew, 100%?
He won't be 100%. He's good enough to play, though.
Would you say he's limited with scrambling? He's not.
I think he won't be quite as fast as he normally is. I think he still moves around. His agility's still good. I think he's still able to buy himself some time, but I don't think he'll is fast when he takes off with the ball.
Going back to the national letter of intent, traveling that day, is it kind of frustrating that you're going to have to wait to get a full report on who's coming?
Well, hopefully they all sign before we leave. They can sign at 7 o'clock in the morning their time. So the ones that are seriously going to sign with this early, most of them will do it first thing in the morning, and then it's all by email and that sort of thing now. So as soon as they sign it, it gets here as quick as it can, and then we make sure that the signatures and the dates and everything are correct before we can announce them. But there again, if they did it wrong, we can get back in touch with them on the phone, and then they can do it right and send it through the email again. So if there's not a problem with the guy signing, it should be all done before we leave town.
Is there a process when you find out where guys sign, where I'm assuming they'll call you first and then they'll go on their whatever TV, if they have a TV show that they do like a big revealing, or do you find out like us when they announce it to the world?
Well, we have a lot of, in this day and age, you have a lot of guys announce their commitment to somebody and then they don't end up signing with those people. I mean, there's a lot of social media commitments that don't end up commitments. Or in our case, every school in the country, we'll be waiting around the computer there at 7 o'clock in the morning, or I think we got some guys from a different time zone, so probably at 6 o'clock in the morning. And we'll be waiting for them to come in, and if they don't come in the first hour, then we start getting nervous, and then we try to get a hold of them and to see if there's a problem. If they don't answer the phone, or a text message, we know there's a problem. And that usually means he's not signing with us, and then about 2 or 3 hours later, we find out that he signed with somebody else when they announce it.
But on signing day, do they ever kind of keep you waiting until they have some event at school that they announce it?
Sometimes, but we try to educate them that sign with us early and then go to school and fake sign it again. I mean, for the TV cameras and all. We try to educate them that way, but every once in a while that happens. They keep us waiting and waiting, and they do eventually sign with us, but they have an event that they want to sign at, yeah. Sometimes that happens.
Has the early signing date helped you in terms of preventing
I think
last-minute defections?
tremendously.
Huh?
I think tremendously. It's helped us tremendously. I think talent-wise, last year's freshman class is the most talented team we've recruited here since I've been the head coach. And I think about 5 to 6 of those kids if they would have waited until February the 3rd, or whatever the signing date was last year, the second signing date, they would have been poached.